Olof here, and this is my full review of the Propain Spindrift. And this is my nephew Wilmer, 14 years old. It's his size large Spindrift that he took delivery of only a few weeks ago. This is his choice of weapon when entering the Swedish Enduro Cup later this year. Propain is different from other brands since the bikes are made to order and you have a choice to keep the base components or to upgrade the bike. This is the Spindrift 29 AL with 29ers, both front and rear. Wilmer chose to upgrade the brakes from SRAM G2 to Code R brakes. He also added a dropper and a bash guard. That adds up to 3,100 euros, which of course is a lot of money. But I know bikes that cost twice as much with worse components. So we have to admit it's a lot to bike for the money. When the bike was delivered, we experienced the consequences of the worldwide component shortage. The bike came with a different dropper with longer travel, a carbon handlebar with a different rise, and a different size stem. The standard handlebar is supposed to be shipped when available from Propain, but the 50mm stem that Wilmer wanted will not be shipped. You have to make do with the 35mm stem that the bike came with, which might seem like a strange decision from Propain, but overall Wilmer got upgraded, so we will leave it at that. This is a freeride bike. What that means, I'm not entirely sure, but my interpretation is that it's a bike park bike that sits somewhere between enduro and downhill. It's got a beefy Zeb fork up front at 180mm of travel, which can be upgraded to 190mm of travel if you want to. There's also a coil shock in the rear. The benefit with coil is that it's plush and virtually stiction free, and you don't need to deal with air spring problems in the future, which seem to be quite common. There are drawbacks. It weighs a bit more, the spring rate is not adjustable, and the bike needs to be designed with a progressive rear linkage to suit the linear coil spring motion. The Spindrift 29 AL is a heavy bike. It weighs at 16.8 kilos in standard configuration according to Propain. Oddly enough, it does not feel that heavy, and even on the climbs the weight is manageable.
So pedaling up these fire roads or gravel roads is absolutely no problem. There's no pedal bob, which is surprising since it's a coil spring, and I'm quite lucky. It is easy to pedal because this bike has got no lockout, no compression switch in the front or in the rear. Okay, so I'm on the Propain Spindrift. I just came from that hardtail over there in the front, and oh yeah, such a big difference with the full suspension bike, and the spring rate, the rear coil shock is a bit too soft for me, and that means it's very plush, of course, but it could be more poppy. I'm not complaining though. I could live with this suspension for a while. Doesn't matter that much, but a little bit more pop would be nice.
I experienced the bike a bit sluggish in the rear end. With my camera gear I weigh at least 30 kilos more than Wilmer, so the coil fitted to this bike is way too soft for me. Wilmer, however, did not have the same experience and could after a day in the bike park produce some impressive pop. Sadly, I didn't catch that on film, but these are his first attempts at least. Wilmer did try a few gnarly red and black trails, which is this bike's biggest strength. The geometry is almost as progressive as the benchmark bike Specialized Enduro that I tested a few weeks ago. The real difference is the suspension, which is one level up on the Spindrift, making it feel like you ride on a magic carpet over roots and rocks. I do like the Spindrift, and it's obviously a very capable bike, but I felt more at home right away with the Specialized Enduro. Wilmer, on the other hand, had the exact opposite experience. The Spindrift suits him much better, which of course is a relief. I think the suspension setup plays a huge role on these bikes, and the rear is just too soft for me, and the bike never came alive because of that, which might dull this review a bit. The plushness is there, however, and I think the geometry is there too, and that makes this a very balanced bike that I feel comfortable on.
Sort of jumps out of the berms too. It's a really fun bike. Wants to jump everywhere. Yeah, pretty fast bike too, as you can see. It's no effort at all to catch up with that hardtail up front, or it shouldn't be there, to be honest.
One other thing that I felt right away with this bike is how super stable it is at speed. There isn't much that will upset this bike. Maybe it's both the weight and the beefy plush suspension that contribute to this sensation. It doesn't matter, this is not a nervous bike. You will never feel underbiked on a Spindrift.
Yeah, very sorted bike.
Here are 3 annoying things with the Propain Spindrift. It's both pros and cons with the 16.8 kilos that this bike weighs. It's not as flickable as other bikes, but it's most likely built to handle abuse very well. The bike can definitely be used on trails, and it even climbs well when sitting down, but it's a lot of bike for other places in bike parks. There is no lockout on this bike, so technical pedaling standing up may not be enjoyable. Pedaling sitting down works surprisingly well on the other hand, so climbing on fire roads is no issue at all. Here are 3 good things with the Propain Spindrift. The bike costs 3,100 euros with great specs, which must be considered good value for money. The beefy suspension makes this one of the more plush bikes that I have ever tested. I have no doubt that this is a great weapon of choice for coming enduro races. There will be more of this bike in future videos when I'm going to film Wilmer's races this fall. I will also make a comparison video later. This bike versus the Specialized Enduro. So I hope to see you then.